All right, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. You know the deal. Subscribe, comment, and like. That keeps us going right here, bringing you the best content we can find. That includes Cam Underwood from State of the U with Miami hitting the podium there at ACC Kickoff on Wednesday. Cam, how you doing?
Good. I'm good. How are you guys?
I'm doing well. I'll speak for myself. We'll see what the live chat has to say.
True.
We know there'll be a few detractors, but a lot of Miami love as well. So Mark Richt, we wouldn't expect him to necessarily leave the media jumping for joy in terms of stuff that they can just run with. He's going to be buttoned up and going to present a good image. And anything in particular, though, that comes to mind that the head coach had to say?
Yeah, it's been fun, having Mark Richt here and everything. So he added to his food blog, basically, because people seem to be asking him about food a lot over the course of the last couple of years. So if you remember, last year was the 10-bite sandwich. This year was the hot dog delight, I think he called it. And then also his game plan for Thanksgiving dinner and everything. And the mothership at SB Nation has a nice blog put up about all the times that Mark Richt has talked about food and things like that, in addition to being an amateur meteorologist, sending out pictures and things like that on his social media. So, that was kind of fun, and all of that. But if you get down to the business of football, the thing that was interesting was Mark Richt is a very staunch proponent of the new redshirt rule. And if you don't know that, that's a player, a freshman or any player can play freshman can play 4 games in a season, any 4 games, and still maintain their redshirt status. So you're, in the case of Miami, 4-star incoming quarterback recruit Jarren Williams, Mark Richt unequivocally said that he's going to play this year. And some people want Jarren Williams to be the next quarterback. They've kind of leapt over the N'Kosi Perry train and things like that. And I don't think that Jarren Williams has done that yet. But it is clear that he's going to play this season. And Mark Richt said so much. So, obviously, N'Kosi Perry has been a little bit more low-key with his workouts and things over this summer. So some people think that he hasn't been working. I would hope that that's not the case. I would hope that he's just kind of grinding in silence like some people like to do. He's going to be, hopefully, N'Kosi, just a firm lock on that number 2 job. Because, like I said last time, I really believe that Malik Rozier is just going to be the starting quarterback this year. So I think definitely you're going to see 3, maybe even 4 quarterbacks play for Miami this year, with obviously Malik Rozier starting, Jarren Williams getting work in up to 4 games, N'Kosi Perry as the backup, and then even Cade Weldon seeing the field. So you're definitely going to see 3, maybe even 4 quarterbacks, and that was really kind of interesting to hear Mark Richt say, like, in such certain terms, like, yeah, we're going to play Jarren Williams because he has that kind of talent. So, that was nice to hear, and I think that if you spin that out or spin that forward to the rest of the roster, I think that there's some other freshmen who otherwise might not have played, with the previous redshirt rule, which was, once you play a player cross that sideline during game action, your redshirt's gone. So I think that we're going to see pretty much everybody in this recruiting class from 2018 get some kind of snaps this year, whether that's Jordan Miller, who's a big defensive tackle, but maybe a little bit of bad weight, needs to reshape his body and get some upper body strength. Maybe if that's, any of these other guys who might not have played, you're probably going to see them for a handful of snaps, but that's still game action where, instead of in theory of, you're on the practice squad and, we're going full speed in practice, but it's different when you go full speed in the game. Like even if you're just like shooting around basketball, like you who's watching this video now, you go out to the basketball court, you shoot around basketball. It's one thing. You play pickup 5-on-5, you got to guard somebody, you got to go up and down that court. At whatever age you are, that's a different kind of physical interaction. And I think that obviously football would be the same. We're like, yeah, you're in practice is one thing, but on the field is a different thing. So you're really going to see that kind of a thing where the whole entire basically recruiting class is going to play, even with some people still taking red shirts this year. And I think that was about it, honestly, just talking about, the state of the program being in a good spot, defending Coastal Division champions, and we should be expected to do that again this and pretty much every year moving forward. Miami is the most talented team in the Coastal Division, even, with 2 crossover games, one against Florida State, and then Boston College is our second crossover game this year, kind of stuff. So, Mark Richt talked about some of those things in addition to, the fun of diagramming food plates and things like that. So, I mean, those were some of the big things that really took away from him. And if I'm forgetting something, then I'm sorry.
Are you a foodie?
Absolutely. I was just cooking a second ago. I just had dinner.
So what are some of the dishes? Are we talking about like real home style stuff? We talking about pretty chic, exotic kind of stuff? What do we like?
For me personally, I kind of a little bit of both. Like it started off with some of the home style things. You know, my mac and cheese is actually kind of pretty legendary amongst my family and friends. So, you know, you have those kind of things, but I also do, you know, have try to venture out and do some kind of exotic things. I do have a couple, you know, nice cookbooks, the seminal 1973 New York Times, I believe, cookbook that was handed down to me from my grandmother. Has a bunch of things in there. I have a, you know, Top Chef cookbook, got a couple Alton Brown cookbooks, you know, some things. So yeah, I mean, I do like the home style because I mean, obviously home style is easier, but once you kind of get your technique down with, you know, doing your mise en place and your prep and everything, you can pretty much get as exotic as you want.
And when you mention you have the Seminole, of course, that's pronounced exactly the same, but the spelling is key there. It's very key.
No. SEMINAL, different.
Okay. Cam Underwood, State of the U, helping us break down Mark Richt and company's comments there at ACC Kickoff. And, of course, answer your comments and questions. We had one come in concerning the offensive line, so that's been much discussed in regards to the effectiveness or lack thereof in recent years and maybe the weakest unit on the team. Can you make a distinction? This person's asking distinction between run blocking and pass blocking. What's been better? What needs more work?
I think that everything needs work. There have been times when, you know, run blocking has been good. There's been times when it's been bad. There's been, I mean, you can say the same thing about pass blocking. If you look back to Brad Kaya's time here at Miami, you know, some of the late game situations, particularly against Florida State, when games are close late and you know you have to throw the ball to, you know, with the clock against you, and teams, especially teams with talent like Florida State up front, are able to pin their ears back and get a pass rush going. I mean, it was pretty bad, honestly. But there's other times where, you know, Brad Kaaya is our all-time leading passer, where you had a perfect pocket and he was able to, you know, lob it 60 yards down to Philip Dorsett, you know, years ago. So, I mean, there's been good and there's been bad. And I think that that's kind of really the story of what impacts the Miami Hurricanes, offensive line-wise and quarterback-wise, because I know that that's going to spin into a Malik Rozier question. So I think that there's been positives and there's been negatives. Mark Richt did mention Venzel Boulware, who's a transfer from Tennessee, a grad transfer who's going to come in, and he's going to fight for time at one of the guard positions. And, you know, he's 6'4", 305, 310 pounds. He's played in the SEC for 3 years. He redshirted for a year and then played for 2, so I believe he has 2 years to play 2 as a grad transfer here. But he's a guy who's going to come in and hopefully, you know, if he's able to play well, then that will maybe help the group get better. So, I mean, I don't think it's been one thing per se, but if I were to say in terms of pass blocking, Miami has struggled because Miami has not had true tackles on the roster. So, and that's from height, that's from length, that's from athleticism and bend, you know, being able to get outside, you know, a nice deep step when you have that pass rusher who's trying to get around the corner and dip that shoulder around. You know, if you got a kind of short, stubby-armed guy trying to block that, then that's not going to be very effective. So that would be the main issue, the lack of talent and a lack of a direct fit of tackles. And then insofar as run blocking, I will say the man-to-man run blocking has often been pretty bad. Miami has gone to that zone blocking, and not just zone read. Like, we run inside zone, outside zone. Like, our run game is zone blocking. And if you go back and watch the Detroit Lions of my youth in the 80s and 90s, when Barry Sanders was there, the Lions went to zone blocking because Barry Sanders could go to any gap. He could be here and then there and anywhere. So they're like, look, we're going to block a zone and then let him freestyle and do whatever he does. So if you want to go see like that, or the Denver Broncos famously went to zone blocking because they had smaller offensive linemen as opposed to these big hulking guys. So they're quicker, more athletic. And Miami's done the same just because we haven't been able to really maul people at the point of attack. And I think that goes back to the recruiting of offensive linemen not necessarily being where it needed to be, particularly at tackle. Because if you're miscasting guys, then you're taking a lot of people out of position. Like Trevor Darling, love him, great guy, good player, should have never been a left tackle here, honestly and truly. And I said that, and I got pushback from him and his family and things like that. Casey McDermott, he finally grew into the left tackle that we thought he could be, which was a high floor and a low ceiling, kind of average, passable kind of a guy. But when you have, it took 3 years for McDermott to even become that kind of a player. And in those 3 years, you miscast Trevor Darling, who's a guard, as that left tackle road grader, centerpiece of the offensive line. And then, just things kind of went from there. So I would say the man-to-man blocking has been pretty poor for those reasons. And then the pass blocking, and then that's in run blocking. And the pass blocking, honestly, that's why Mark Richt is saying, if you are an offensive tackle recruit who has talent, we have playing time for you because we need you here. And I think that we've seen that over the course of seasons.
So you writing for one of the subsidiaries of one of the main platforms in sports journalism and a new style of journalism over the last 10 to 15 years, I'm going to ask you a question that just came to light based on a comment you just made that I've never asked before. How much feedback, positive, negative, have you received from players, family of players, probably not coaches, but players and possible recruits, the people that are in the know, that are in the forum?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, we get feedback from everywhere, from our readers, from who love us, from our readers who hate us, from rivals. When it's a game week and we're profiling the Virginia Cavaliers, the Virginia fans will pop up. Florida State fans are on State of the U all the time, in addition to their own SB Nation website. So I do get feedback. There have been a couple of times, and if there are a couple of my friends and followers on Twitter here who are watching this, there have been a couple of times that famously some individuals have come at me. I said that Philip Dorsett, I said, like this tweet if you think Philip Dorsett should return punts so I can block you, was the next tweet years ago. Because, and I went on to say that I believe he has straight line speed. He's better as a kickoff returner. And Philip Dorsett himself LOL'd me and, kind of responded to that. The mother of a former player who's no longer at the University of Miami because he got booted off the team last year because he was running his mouth at the behest of said mother, came at me years ago for asking if this player was going. I asked if he was going to graduate high school, if he was going to qualify. That's it. And she kind of went off the deep end and said, she was going to hurt me and show up somewhere in Miami and drop my address and all kinds of things like that. So, I mean, there have been those kind of famous interactions. But, I mean, yeah, honestly, we get more good feedback than bad. But, I have heard from several players, past and current, on the team. I've heard from several coaches, past and current, with the team as well. So, I mean, yeah, we do have a level of visibility where if we say something outlandish, I'm probably going to hear about it from maybe even the person that it's about or referencing. But yeah, I mean, it's good to know that on some level, at least, what we are putting up on the website is reaching people. But yeah, I do hear back from a lot of people, whether it's family of players, if it's recruits, current players, coaches, things like that. Not all the time, but sometimes I do.
So it's a fan site. So we have writers that are fans of the team, and in your case, alum of the university, and different people take a different approach when it comes to that. Some say, I'm a fan, I root for the school, I put on the rose-colored glasses, and I go to work, and I'm going to tell you all the good things, and I'm going to promote the program. Others take a more critical eye. I think that you cast yourself somewhere in between. That's my perspective. What is your bent on your approach?
Yeah, I just try to be pragmatic, and be real about things. Good when things are good, bad when things are bad. Obviously, my first few years blogging were about Al Golden. Yeah, was there some good? Did we win some games? Sure. Was everything perfect? If I wore my orange and green glasses? Absolutely not. And I don't think that people would have connected to that because that would have been on its face disingenuous. So, yeah, I do try to be pragmatic about things and, critical when when it's time to be critical. And like even last year with Malik Rozier, you know, even through that winning streak, when I started to get really critical when the games were close and they shouldn't have been, like Georgia Tech, no reason, Syracuse, Virginia, like there were games that should not have. I mean, losing to Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh team last year, unacceptable, garbage, trash. North Carolina and being tied at the half or up 7-6, trash. And you played like it. And we watched the Florida State game was on ESPNU last night, and I live tweeted it again and was like, look, this throw, you got to make it. Even the broadcast, it was 3rd and 3. They run play action one way, they come back the other way, drag the tight end wide open, missed him. Even the broadcast said, if you're Malik Rozier, you got to make that throw. Look, and I've said that. So, yeah, you know, I do try to be pragmatic. And if there are things that are good, obviously we're going to celebrate those. But if there are things that, to my estimation, are lacking, then I'm going to say that. So, and some people don't like that, especially, you know, even last year when we're running off win after win after win, you can kind of get lost by looking at the result without considering the process. And I try not to do that. So, you know, we do try to, you know, be honest and genuine, and we have a variety of people on the website with a variety of opinions. Previously, one of our writers, John Reynolds, wrote about Mark Richt as the master of the fade route and how he's mastered it, when to call it, who to have running it, how to make that 100% work. This past week, Justin DeTavio wrote a piece entitled "Stop Throwing the Fade Route." So that right there is the dichotomy of thought, where even if John said that and proved a great point, Justin came in and said, no, I disagree. And that's really where I think that we do things well, by just being honest and genuine about things. Because much like when I was teaching, if you go into a classroom and you're trying to put on an act, kids will see through you immediately. The same thing, if I'm trying to be on this website or run this website or create this content and I'm trying to do it in a disingenuous way, people are going to see through it immediately. And that's why I try to be honest.
So all of those ideas and all of that writing goes through you, and you obviously don't have to agree with all of it, but you have to find it credible.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're not going to do anything that I feel to be irresponsible or something like that. There was a former contributor years ago who wrote something that was incredibly controversial. I'm not even going to say it. I don't have the Google cache of this piece up. All I'm going to say is it was a very pointed commentary about a former rival player. And every person that I know either was tweeting me or called me, even a couple of my journalist friends, because I do know, you know, the local journalists, they called me, and I was working my day job, you know, so I'm like, whatever, I'm teaching, you know, whatever, we're singing, like, hey, I'm wearing, you know, music shirt. So I'm like, I'm in the classroom working for a performance or something. And when they kept calling is when I was like, I need to step in my office and see what is going on. And that was right when I had started running the Twitter account for the website, and I saw what it was. And that was like, whoo, I mean, it was a firestorm. Like, I had to take it down. We had to issue a retraction immediately, like, you know, because of the way that things were said. So yeah, we're not going to do anything like that. And I do empower all of our contributors to be as creative as they want, as long as it's consistent and it's genuine content, as long as it has some kind of logical foundation. Then even if I disagree with it, and there's been things, I mean, I do not agree with the DeTavio piece saying stop throwing the fade. I think that it has value when you have guys like Amon Richards, when you have guys like Lawrence Cager, when you have Brian Hightower, when you have a Dayal Harris, who, you know, caught a fade route, a back shoulder fade, and won the Florida State game on that throw. Now, it wasn't the 5 yard line fade. It was, you know, a different kind, but I see value in that. But he made a great case, and he put up some statistics for his reasoning and things like that. And because of that, I think it is valid. And just like, you know, in the game of football, when you have people running a up-tempo spread, like, you know, any up-tempo spread team versus teams running the grinded slow down, Georgia Tech, you can have a disparity of thought, but still agree or still be approaching things from an appropriate angle. Even if everybody doesn't necessarily agree on that angle, it still has a logical foundation. That's what I try to bring forward.
The fade pattern seems to be similar to the three-point shot in basketball, where when it's drilled, it's beautiful. When it's not, sometimes when it's contested or even wide open, some people will clamor Why didn't you run the offense and look for an wide open basket or something underneath, or really pound the rock down to a mismatch down on the block? The fade pass, obviously, if the timing's got to be exceptional, or you've got to have a freak or a mismatch on the outside to where the pass doesn't have to be perfect. And if the quarterback or the cornerback plays it well, then it can look ugly, because the perception is, well, you had your mind made up on throwing the ball over there when you could have opened up the field and looked for the best possible route out of 3 or 4.
Yeah, but when you have limited time for that, I mean, if you're throwing the fade from the 5-yard line, you don't have time to sit and scan the field and then decide to throw that. That has to be a catch it, step, throw. Like, I mean,
I'm talking more about the call.
Right. I mean, the call. I mean, different strokes for different folks. I mean, we threw 3 fades in a row to Amon Richards last year against Virginia, I want to say. I'm good with each and every one of those, because it's Amon Richards versus whoever they had at cornerback from Virginia, who plain and simple is not as good as Amon Richards. You're not as good. You're not as tall. You're not as athletic. You're not that kind of a player. So me with a one-on-one with Amon Richards out there, throw the fade. I'm fine with that, but I mean, everything in moderation. Every time inside the 10, we're not going to throw the fade on every single play. I mean, obviously there's other concerns that go in there, but I will say, to remove anything from the playbook in its entirety, I don't necessarily think fits, especially something that has yielded such positive results as the, short distance fade route to the end zone.
He is Cam Underwood, State of the U. You probably already knew that, but if you're new to Mark Rogers TV or have not checked out Cam's work at State of the U, please do so. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We bring on the very best in the industry to talk of college football each and every day. Cam, finish the sentence for me. This Miami team, let me preface it first, if it meets expectations, doesn't blow away expectations and win the national championship, or not meet expectations and go 7-5, 8-4. This Miami team is the best Miami team since blank.
Last year. I mean, if we're going in a short term, last year was the first 10-win season since 2003. The first major bowl game since that same season, I want to say, which was, the Peach Bowl against LSU that ended very poorly. Quick story about that. I was in Detroit for Christmas. I went to pick up pizza to go to my best friend's house to watch games like we always do. So I went over to his house. We went downstairs, and I got there as they were going to commercial after the opening field goal on Miami's first drive. So I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be easy. 40 points later, not so much. But yeah, I mean, I think that this is one of the best teams that we've seen. I mean, obviously, the end of Larry Coker's time was bad. Randy Shannon's tenure never had a team this good. Al Golden's tenure never had a team this good. So, I mean, yeah, unless you're talking in relation to last year with a 10-win season, then you got to go back to, 02, something like that, 02, 03. I mean, it's been a long time since Miami's really had a team like this. So, yeah, I would say if you're talking about wins, this is the best team since last year. If you're talking about like the whole, picture and everything, probably since 03, maybe 04, maybe 05. Even if that team didn't necessarily have the 10 wins, that was still a very talented team. So, I mean, somewhere in that 03 to 05 range is probably where we're going to look.
We talked last time about the players showing up in Charlotte, Amon Richards and Jaquan Johnson. Did they have anything of note to say?
Yeah, I mean, Jaquan Johnson was just really taking advantage of his platform as one of the best, if not the best safety in America to, introduce himself to the people, and he spoke about that. He made note that of the players on the team, he thinks that fifth-year senior Demetrius Jackson is making the biggest leap this offseason. Demetrius Jackson missed the last couple of games with a knee injury, I believe. So he's working his way back, but was probably the best run defender of the defensive linemen last year. He's, former basketball player. He's like 6'4", 260-ish pounds. So he can play outside or swing inside to defensive tackle at certain times, but he's doing really well. And that was noted by Jaquan Johnson. And then Amon Richards, just really taking a business-like approach to things, really, learned a lot through his struggles with injury and inconsistency, which kind of was born of the injury bug last year, but really excited to get back to full strength and full speed and really, just kind of Amon Richards is a transformational player for the offense. And even if his numbers aren't gigantic, even if it's not 1,300 yards and 17 touchdowns or anything like that, just having him out there, like I said before, you see defenses have to change the way that they defend the pass if 82 is on the field. You're looking at the way the safeties are. You're looking at, the underneath coverage. You're looking at all kinds of different things. Teams have to defend Miami differently when Amon Richards is out there because they know if Amon Richards gets the ball, it could, on any play, you could be striking up the band and changing the scoreboard. I mean, in that bowl game against West Virginia a couple of years ago, Miami was struggling on offense, and I just said, I was screaming from the stands. I said, throw the now route, just to stop and throw him the ball or a drag, something to get him the ball where you're not waiting, because the blocking, the pass blocking, just like we talked about before, was not necessarily meeting muster. So they did it finally, and you saw how the West Virginia defense bailed on the threat of him going deep. So you run a combination, run the slot, the two receiver, down the seam, and the one, Amon, he comes on the inside just on a simple drag route. 52-yard touchdown. Just because once he got the ball in space, you can't run with him, And I think Amon Richards was really just dedicated to greatness. He's really, he broke records his freshman year here at Miami. He was a freshman All-American. Last year, obviously, was not that same player. And you can talk about the injuries. You can talk about the inconsistency. You can talk about anything else. But for whatever reason, Amon Richards in 2017 was not the same as 2016. But he has a fire lit under him now, and he wants to get back out there. So, he was talking about that and really just, being excited to work with, Malik Rozier or whoever else is going to play quarterback. But like I said, it's going to be Rozier. But yeah, just really excited to get back out there and get healthy and get full speed and remind people of the kind of player that he can be, and I know that he didn't say it, but you have to read the subtext of, as I'm looking towards the NFL, because, he was Amon Richards was up for, he's on the watch list for a couple national awards, the Biletnikoff Award for the best wide receiver, which other one? There's another one for best offensive player. I forget which one it is. But he's up for both of those, or he's on the watch list at least. So people are looking. NFL teams are looking. So, yeah, if he does well, then obviously that, is a thing where he can go to the league and, make money and, provide for his family and all those kind of things. But, yeah, just both players are really dedicated to being great. And we've seen that from both of them at different times. But hopefully, they'll be able to spin that forward.
Cam Underwood, State of the U, talking up the Canes after ACC kickoff and Miami's appearance on Wednesday. So the turnover chain made its appearance in game number 1, right, of last season?
Absolutely, every single game.
Okay, well, it made its appearance. Yes, thanks for clarifying.
Hey, anytime. That's what I'm here for.
And if I remember correctly, obviously in winning 10 consecutive games, there wasn't an issue with what I'm about to bring up. Then even in the losses, albeit I got to admit, I was checked out of the second half of the Clemson game and I had moved on to other championship games, but I watched the Orange Bowl start to finish. I watched the Pitt game start to finish, and there was never a point at which, okay, we got a turnover, but we're down 35-0. So, how do you celebrate or not celebrate? I'm just asking about, well, as celebrated as this was, across college football, does it have a shelf life?
I think it does. I thought that the shelf life was 1 year, but we're bringing it back for another year. And obviously, hopefully we get something around the 31 turnovers that Miami was able to get last year and, kind of still have that same party. But, maybe I'm wrong. If this is, the turnover chain was such a cultural moment. You saw offices. You saw youth teams, you saw hockey, girls basketball, girls lacrosse. Any kind of group, really, and in many different places, had their version of the turnover chain. It was such a cultural phenomenon last year that it was more widespread than I thought it was going to be. And I think it was more widespread than even Manny Diaz, who was, the brain behind the turnover chain. I think it was even more of a thing than he thought it was going to be. So, you know, as long as there's consistent play and, you know, obviously we continue to create turnovers and win games, I think it can continue to be celebrated. So, I mean, like I said, I thought that the shelf life of the turnover chain was 1 year, and I wrote that we should have retired it after one season because it was a great thing. But obviously, as Miami is bringing it back, and there seems to be momentum with it, and maybe that will continue.
Because I was just curious, because again, you win 10 straight games. Every time you get a turnover, you're celebrating because either you've got a huge lead or it's big in trying to win the game, and then you end up winning the game. They lost to Pitt, but that was still in doubt with about 3 to 4 minutes left, something in that range. But they never got a turnover. You know, they're down by 25 points in the fourth quarter. The Clemson game, I didn't know. So I looked up the box score because I saw the Orange Bowl, and that obviously went down to the last 2 or 3 minutes as well. So there was always turnovers when the game was competitive. It was competitive start to finish. So Clemson lost a fumble. So I was just wondering about that one time, and it's apparently already happened.
Yeah.
When the opponent turns the ball over, Miami gets a turnover, and the conditions are not favorable. They're out of hand.
Yeah, you know, like, those players are still going to be celebratory of doing their job and things like that. You know, I was there in Charlotte for the ACC championship game, and I mean, it was like, great, we got a turnover. You can go wear the chain. I got it. But, like, it wasn't the transformational kind of joy. Like, you know, it wasn't that kind of effusive a moment.
And that's the first time that happened.
Right. I mean, exactly. I mean, we were getting blown out anyway. So, I mean, like, whether we'd gotten that turnover or not wasn't really going to change how I was feeling at that moment because, you know, the scoreboard was still very lopsided. So, you know, like, yeah, I mean, it did happen. And that's something that could potentially happen. And, of course, you know, your opponents are going to talk about it. Your opponents are going to mock it. You know, if they score a touchdown, they're going to, I mean, that's the other side of the coin. So, I mean, that's going to happen. But, you know, it's fine. You know, we weren't necessarily doing it even as big as it is. And Mark Richt said it's like 6 pounds, and it's this huge Cuban link thing, and it has, you know, the U with the bejeweled logo on there and all these kind of things. Like, it's big and it's gaudy and it's like a thing, but it's for us. You know, it's for the team. Like, we're celebrating, we're going over there. It's not a thing like a Baker Mayfield going and planting the flag at somebody else's midfield after each play or something like that. Like, it is braggadocious. It is bling. It is swag. It is all of those things. But, like, off the field on our sideline towards our fans, like, over here, we're doing this because the offense is over here going to play. But the defense and, you know, everybody else, we're kind of looking – it's more towards us than towards anybody else. But obviously, if there's a celebration at the – you know, expense of somebody else because, you know, the other team would have had to make a fumble that we got or thrown an interception or something like that, then obviously there's going to be pushback against that. But, yeah, I mean, like I said, the one turnover did come in the ACC championship game when we were getting blown out. But, you know, hopefully we avoid those and continue to win more games.
Again, I'm marveling at it just happening one time out of 31 times where just about any other team in the country, if you said, okay, you're going to celebrate and go crazy and have this celebration and the celebratory award. If you would go through every team in the country and you went through every turnover, most of those turnovers meant something good, obviously, but many of them happen, a percentage of them, depending on how good your team is, in situations in which you shouldn't be celebrating. And it took to the 11th and final game of the regular season for that to happen. So it's just kind of an oddity that I was searching for there, and I thought maybe there was a turnover gained against Clemson that would have been the only one that would have fit my situation, in which this is kind of strange here. So that finally happened. All right. Cam, will probably have you back, if at all possible, sometime during fall camp. So as we enter that first week of August and the guys start battling for positions, what are the ones that are the most up for grabs?
Good question. The ones that are up for, it's not quarterback because I don't believe Mark Richt. And that's just it. I don't believe him. Malik Rozier is going to start. That's what he said. So don't ask me about quarterback because Malik Rozier is going to start, period. The positions that are up for discussion are the offensive line. and that would mainly be like the guards more than anything else. I think that the tackles and center are all set. So at the guard positions, there could be Hayden Mahoney, Tyler Gauthier. No, Gauthier is going to play center. Hayden Mahoney or Jahair Jones or Benzel Bulware. Two of those three are probably going to start. We do have some recruits that are trying to battle for playing time, but I don't necessarily think that they're going to be in the starting role. So, just really getting that final composition of the starting five up front. Tight end is up for grabs because, we have two freshmen coming into that position room, but the freshmen are the best players there. So it's a matter of time until Brevin Jordan and Will Mallory really get into heavy playing time. And that could come from day one. And I hope so, because they give us, I think, the best chance to win because they're the best players. Getting the, you could get the depth chart at wide receiver, the depth chart at running back. Those are things that are going to be up for grabs. And then that's really about it. I guess you could talk about corners on defense. Trajan Bandy, is a sophomore this year, and he's talked about wanting to play corner, like outside cornerback, not just nickel all the time, even though he's very good at it. And I think, that fits for him because he has great change of direction, and he's a little, smaller at 5'9". But, he wants to play corner, like outside, like let's go. So, he's in that conversation. You got Gilbert Frierson, who's a freshman, DJ Ivy, who's a freshman, Javante Dean, who's a senior JUCO transfer from last year, who has if you're buying jerseys, I'm buying a Javante Dean jersey. He's 6'2", he's 190 pounds. He can run like the wind. But does he have skills? Like, he has talent. And there's a difference because talent is God-given and skill is developed. And he has, the height and the speed and everything on the talent side. He's been gifted that. Does he have demonstrable skill? And that's really what even cornerback Mike Rumph has talked about. And if he's developed skill and found that one or two things that he does well, then that'll be something that could maybe push him towards the field. And the other starter at cornerback is Michael Jackson, who's a senior, fourth-year senior, who's among the best corners in the country. I think he's preseason first-team All-ACC and should be. He's earned that. He's developed. He's put in the time over the course of the last few years. So, those other couple of positions, I think your starting safeties are going to be the same guys. Those are going to be Jaquan Johnson and Sheldrick Redwine. And then the battle behind them with Amari Carter and Robert Knowles and Gervin Hall will be, that second tier is really what we're looking at. And then that new striker position, outside linebacker, safety hybrid. Romeo Finley was in front of Derek Smith at the end of the spring at that position. And that was with my boy Zach McLeod being out with a wrist injury. So he's coming back into the fold as well. So it depends on what happens really there. So, it could go any of three ways at that third linebacker. Mike Pinckney and Shaq Quarterman, they're going to start at linebacker, like set it and forget it. But I guess, now with that injury and kind of looking for maybe a little bit more speed and pass coverage at times from that third linebacker, that striker position, the door has become open for Zach McLeod, who has started for his first 2 years, to maybe not start this year. I'm not going to say that that's going to be the case, but there's at least, three solid contenders there between Romeo Finley, who was a safety and then has now come down, and then Derek Smith, also same thing, along with Zach McLeod. So I would say that those are really the positions that I'm looking at. And then I just want to see or hear about Bubba Baxa, the new kicker. He's one of the strongest legs in football, but he was like 4 out of 9 as a senior in high school on accuracy. And I know that they did put him out there from 55 and 60 yards a couple times because they're like, you can kick the ball from here to, El Paso and back, so just go and see what happens. But I want to see or hear, hopefully, that the whole kicking process is going in a good way. So that's what I would say on position battles.
6 weeks from Saturday. It's really not that far away.
Let's go. I'm excited. I'm hyped. Just put in for my credentials. I'm about to buy my plane ticket. Was just talking to my mom earlier because both her and my birthdays are in August, but we're not going to be able to get together for those. So maybe we get together that weekend because she lives in the Dallas area, so I can hang out and do that kind of thing. Like, oh yeah, I'm ready to go already. And Yeah. Oh, we're gonna have a happy hour event there the day before the game, which I'm finalizing, plans for now, and hopefully, see all of our Canes fam and whatnot out there. I'm excited. I'm ready.
And I can truly enjoy a game like that because I just enjoy the talent. I don't really care who wins, and then I can just kick back and watch the game and enjoy a good college football game and a good college football weekend. Notre Dame, Michigan, Virginia Tech, Florida State, some other games as well. It should be a good time starting on that Thursday night. But Sunday night, before the NFL kicks off the next weekend, it's Miami and LSU. Two of the Blue Bloods, two of the great programs, two of the most athletic teams year in, year out in the nation going at it. Cam Underwood, State of the U, that's your stop for Miami football. And then Cam kind of comes to life when I bring him on to tell some stories and bring narrative and bring some personality to what you can read there at State of the U to get you set for 2018. Cam, we appreciate you stopping by. You're welcome anytime.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good conversation. Like Mark said, please go by the website, stateoftheu.com. We have a big contributing staff. I think that we're doing some really great stuff over there. So please catch up with us there. And we don't just do football. I mean, I know that we talk football mainly here, but basketball, baseball, non-revenue sports, recruiting, other kind of things. We have a wide variety of content. So even no matter what you're looking for, I think that we have something for you there. So be sure that you check us out, stateoftheu.com.
Cam, people ask for you all the time. They want Miami coverage, and they want you first and foremost. So, again, I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, it's good. It's nice to be wanted. So I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you the next time.